The boys are playing some ball. Me and Joel are playing some ball. Josh is kind of playing some ball. We're going to talk about all of that here on One Royal Way.
This is KC Sports Network, proudly presented by Emprise Bank.
And we are back, One Royal Way podcast here on KC Sports Network. Jordan Foote, Joel Penfield here with you. Nick Springer behind the scenes producing. No Josh Kaiser today. He is okay. All is well with him. He'll be back next week. So two-man pod for the second week in a row. Joel, you guys had a banger of an episode last week. First of all, and second of all, how's it going?
Surviving, man, hanging in there. The boys are playing some good ball right now. Tough tests, and they seem to be they're hanging in. It's not like they're and it's 6-0 now. It was 3-0 when I looked previously. So there's that. I think what we're learning is the Yankees are really good. Full stop. But it doesn't change my opinion about where this team is at and what they're going to be.
Yeah, absolutely. No, we talked last, I guess, 2 weeks ago, entering June about, man, even if they go 500 or even a game or two below 500 in June, it's not going to be hit the panic button. This team sucks
Not
time. And they're still being competitive. And that's kind of what this episode's overarching theme is, how they're remaining competitive through, man, a brutal stretch in play. Like you went from Tampa, Cleveland's in there, the Yankees are in there, the Dodgers are in there, Minnesota thrown in there. Like it's just a very, very challenging part of the schedule for them. But once it opens up, I believe it was Jack Johnson who tweeted about a bunch of games against below 500 teams that they should beat up on afterwards.
So they get through this stretch against the Yankees, then they're at the Dodgers, then you get the Texas you play Oakland, the Athletics in Oakland, and then you're at Texas and Miami before you come home for 4 against Cleveland. So you get a little bit of a reprieve before the first place team comes back, but you have them at home for 4. So there's a pretty good stretch in here. And then to start July, you get Tampa, then you're at Colorado, at St. Louis, and then at Boston, who the Rockies are a disaster. The Cardinals are okay. And the Red Sox are an okay 500 team. And then you come out of the break against the White Sox and the Diamondbacks toward the end of July. So this is a stretch where the Royals this is where they can gain some ground back from a really tough stretch in June. And if they can continue to hold their own and be around 500-ish out of this, by the time they're done playing the Dodgers on Sunday, I'll feel pretty good.
Yeah, 100%. And since the last time you guys recorded, they did play Cleveland and lost. They played Cleveland again and won. They won a game against Seattle, then won another one. Really fun series, and you're going to talk about that here in a second as your kind of like overarching takeaway. And then the Yankees series is off to kind of the Yankees series start. They're a damn good team. A lot of the people before the year were picking them to represent the AL in the World Series, and I was the dumbass that did it last year, and I always drink the Kool-Aid with them, and now they're actually producing relatively up to the hype. So I think the only 2 individual performances that jumped out to me, and obviously I was on the road, I should gloat about my fun golf trip in St. George, Utah. I didn't watch many of the games, so I admittedly don't have the in-depth analysis of the specific plays and stuff like that, but Bobby Witt Jr. In the 8-5 loss against Cleveland with a couple of home runs, and then the Daniel Lynch start against Seattle, he wasn't very good. He had 4 walks, he allowed 8 runs.
Lightly, man.
Yeah, he had a rough game. The Royals still overcame the 8-run deficit. Bobby Witt Jr. electric in the 9th inning. That encapsulates kind of the difference, I think, between last year's team and this year's team. And that's not me saying that they're always going to come back from those deficits, but the ability to be competitive and always feel like they have a chance in a game. And even in that one where you really felt, okay, this team didn't show up today, they're cooked, they still have a chance of surprising you. And stuff like that comes in handy when you're making a playoff run. Stuff like that comes in handy when you get to the playoffs. They are still a long ways away from doing either of those things. But again, every week, even if they aren't playing too well, we're still reminded of the difference between 2023 and 2024 as a team that can hang in there against good opponents, can string hits together. The on-base stuff with runners in scoring position is legitimate. Just a bunch of good indicators of the type of team they've been.
the thing that always has struck me about this team, and I've talked about it before, but now we have kind of seen the other side of it, where this team is almost unflappable after they lose a gut punching game. Like that game on I think it was on Tuesday or Wednesday, while we were recording, Bobby Wood Jr. has an error that costs them 3 runs. They lose the game. And despite a really good performance at the plate, you're up 5-0 and you lose by 3. Like just an unmitigated disaster of a game. And that is, if this team was not as mentally strong as other teams, that could have completely sent their season down a spiral. And instead they come out after the game gets banged on Wednesday. They come out on Thursday and against a really good Cleveland team, find a way to gut out a win where Brady Singer doesn't get out of the 4th. You get 5 1/3 hitless from the bullpen, and you find a way to win a game. They did not let the previous game beat them that day. And I think that is the mark of a good team. And I don't care how many times I have to say it. That's how you have the season that the Royals are having, by not letting those types of losses affect you. Then I saw the other side of it. So I was at the game on Friday. I'll maybe go a little more in depth on it later in our takeaway segment. But you win a highly emotional, wild game. You win it. And then I go and I was able to cover the game as media on that Saturday. And I go driving to the ballpark. I'm like, I wonder how the clubhouse is going to be. Like, how do they come down from that to still go play the game today and not, have any sort of emotional letdown? And I walked in the clubhouse. It was exactly the same as I've seen it all year. It's laid back. Everyone's chilling. They're talking shop at the tables. They were going about their business the exact same way. There was zero difference. And everyone understood, yes, yesterday was awesome. And winning a game like that is a big deal. This is a new game today, and we can't worry about that anymore. That's in the past. It's a win, and that's great, but we got to win the game today. And they went out and did it. And it was no different. And I think that says a lot about the mentality of this team. And they take after their manager in that way. Matt Cotrero has been that way the whole year. Like, yes, we want to win today. All right, we did. Okay, well, we got a new opportunity tomorrow. And we're putting that behind us. You drive home, think about it. By the time you're up the next morning, it's a new day. And we're not going to worry about what happened yesterday, win or loss. And I think that says a lot about where this team is at, where they're heading, and the long-term sustainability of building a winning team and building a winning culture that we just have to focus on today, and that's all we can focus on. We can't worry about the previous 3 games, winning an awesome game yesterday. We got to go out and figure this out, how to win today, and move on from there.
And they are going to be doing this with a little bit of shuffling in the bullpen and in the lineup. Dan Altavilla called up Will Klein option. The Royals just kind of massaging their options there and making sure that no one's overworked. Everyone gets an opportunity, and they've been kind of steadfast and confident about not giving people tryouts. But Dan Altavilla, 2.63 ERA. He probably wouldn't be getting the promotion if it was the other way around. In AAA this year, pitched on Monday, had 2 strikeouts in an inning. Will Klein, kind of a mixed bag, but the Royals still remain confident in him, and I think most of those who watch the team are the same. Hunter Renfroe to the 10-day IL with a fractured left big toe. Drew Waters up. Adam Frazier to the bereavement list. Nick Prado called up. So there's a lot to unpack there. Joel, if you want to just hit all 3 in a row, or we can peel back one at a time, whatever your initial thought is when I read those 3 kind of groups of transactions.
I'll just go down the list. Will Klein's going to be back at some point. This was mostly he threw 3 innings in 2 days. He threw a lot of pitches. He got kind of touched up on Sunday. So this is just getting a fresh arm in, a guy with some big league experience. Shout out to Dan Altavilla. Yesterday was his first big league game since 2021. He had Tommy John surgery, battled other injuries, basically had not pitched. He only thrown 6 2/3 innings since 2021. So this was a long journey back for him. He talked about how hard and arduous that journey was, but he gets back. He looked awesome. 97 with some life. That slider that sits around 90, 91 had some real bite to it. I don't know how long-term sustainable it is, but it was a really good start from a team that needs that kind of velocity in the bullpen. And what we've hammered that point religiously on this podcast. So good for him. I'm glad he's back. I think that was awesome. It absolutely sucks that Hunter Renfroe fouled that ball off his foot and fractured his toe. He had really gotten going over the last almost month, a calendar month at this point, with a weighted runs created plus in the 140s. It looked like the Royals' patience had paid off, and that this guy that they kept giving the opportunity to when no one wanted him in the lineup after like April 5th, and he finally was getting it done. He was the power was starting to go there. The at-bats were getting better. The strikeouts were down. He was doing everything they asked of him to hit 7th or 8th in this lineup. Looked like they found one of those corner outfield spots like solidified. Even if he wasn't playing every day, you knew he was going to produce more often than not over the last month. And now he's out for about a month. So this is where we see, is Drew Waters the difference maker that everyone wants him to be? I'm a little skeptical of that, but I'm with new information. I'm willing to change my opinion. So I hope he does well, but I'm still in wait and see mode with him. Thoughts and prayers to Adam Frazier with whatever occurred. Hopefully, everything is okay and that his family, finds peace with this. Nick Prado will be gone the second that Adam Frazier comes back. Like, this is not going to be a long-term thing that even if Nick Prado gets hot for a couple of days, he's going to go back down to AAA. That's my opinion on this. Adam Frazier has been just fine for this team. He is whatever role they put him in. He's a pro about it and goes about his business the right way. And with what they're asking of him at this point to not play every day, like I'm cool with Adam Frazier on the big league lineup. So, I'm curious what you have here, but that kind of gets through everything for me.
Yeah, no, you hit a lot of the points that I had. Just some tidbits to supplement what you brought up. Renfroe from May 10th until June 10th when he got hurt, hit 284, 874 OPS. The WRC plus was like 144. Strikeout rate was awesome. Pretty manageable. He was great. Prado, 83 WRC plus in Omaha in the last month. He was hitting under 200, striking out 26% of the time, 49 WRC plus. So I'm not expecting a ton from him. Drew Waters, quietly though, and I'm going to talk about him a little bit later, the last month hitting 217, striking out 28% of the time down in Omaha. Not really going too well for him, but did show signs of life over the past week or two. The only two other transactions, and these are minor leagues, 19-year-old right-handed pitcher Adrian Belland was signed to a minor league deal. He threw 2 innings in the DSL. And then Kevin Padlow signed to a minor league deal, option to, I want to say he got assigned to AA.
That sounds right.
Yeah, he had a -1, a negative WRC plus in 26 career big league games. So no longer the young guy breaking onto the scene, kind of not expecting a ton. But the Royals continue to churn out transactions, churn out progress. And Michael Massey's making progress on the injury front. Started baseball activities on Monday, taking some swings, playing some catch. Michael Wacha, who Joel, you kind of told us was in that walking boot and not viewed as a significant injury, and that's kind of still vibing with that as he had a scheduled bullpen, playing catch daily since he got hurt. And then Chris Bubich had his timeline extended a little bit with the rehab assignment. I was unaware of the rule that if you were coming back from Tommy John, I saw Annie wrote it and I was like, okay, that's interesting because I knew the deadline was coming up, but that's going to be revisited at the end of this week. So injury wise, unfortunate. It's a game of attrition, but they do have guys working their way back. And I think that's really a silver lining and something to look forward to for a team that is still kind of weathering the storm even without it.
Yeah, I would expect Michael Massey to come back here fairly soon. It didn't. The way that they've been talking about it was basically just when he feels ready, he's going to go to a rehab assignment. Like they didn't seem like it didn't. The way Cotrero was talking about it, the way that JJ talked about it, that it was not a very serious long-term thing. Just tweaked a little bit, the same sort of injury, so they want to be careful. But if he's ready to go, he's ready to go. And like I talked about last week, when he's in the lineup, it is a difference maker for this team. The way the offense was going when he was in there, it was night and day compared to what we saw at various times throughout the year.
Yep.
Michael Wacha, I saw him on Saturday walking around. He was not in the boot when he was walking around. Now his ankle foot area was like wrapped or taped up, but I didn't notice like any limp or any sort of like hobble with it. So it seems like it's obviously a fracture and that's an issue, but doesn't feel like it's a Long term, it could be the 3 to 4 weeks that was originally looked at. In fact, and the fact that he's throwing a bullpen within 10 days of going on the IL tells me
Mm-hmm.
that the timeline stays pretty, in line with where they're at.
Yeah, no, 100%. Really, the only other weekly takeaways I want to hit on MJ Melendez really briefly, but tell me about Friday's game because you were there and it was one hell of a. Words can't even really describe a comeback like that, but do your best to do it.
I mean, just off top, it was the craziest game I've ever seen. And I was there as a fan the last few times that I've gone out to. Love you, Josh. Glad. Thanks for hopping in the chat. Last few times I've gone to games, it's just as media. So it's, different viewing experience, different, game experience. But I was there as a fan with my mom, my dad, my younger sister. And my dad's a lifelong Royals fan. Has like his first games were at Municipal Stadium before the K even opened. And even he said, craziest game he's ever seen. And you settle into the ballpark and you're you sit down with your beer and you're like, oh, we're down 4-0 already. Like it happened that fast. Lynch, you could tell pretty early, it was just a day where you're like, all right, we're just going to sit and enjoy a day at the ballpark. And that's all this is going to be. Roughed up. Hopefully they can bounce back tomorrow. And then MJ hits the homer, makes it 8-4. And you're like, okay, this is getting interesting now. And the thing that I loved was that the crowd hadn't thinned out at all, even into the fourth, even in the middle innings. Like it was still a pretty decent night. And even despite some of the weather, it rained there for a couple innings. I was undercover, so I didn't notice it, but people really didn't leave. And they hung around and the Royals just kept chipping away. They got to Bryce Miller, got to the Mariners bullpen. And then the ninth inning was as electric as anything I've ever seen. The whole crowd, once I think it was the first run scored, and you're like, okay, or it was 9-7 at that point. And you get second and third with Michael coming up. That run scores, and everybody's on their feet at this point. And you could feel everyone, the tension in the stadium it felt like a playoff game. It was the closest thing we probably had to any sort of playoff baseball in years. With Bobby coming up, the whole crowd wasn't chanting, let's go Royals. The entire crowd was chanting Bobby. So I'm like, I can't remember the last time we had anything like that in this city with the baseball team. He hits that ball down the line and he hit first and you knew he was getting the third. It was one of the most wild experiences I've ever seen. Nelly hits the ball to JP and you win a ball game. And it took probably a solid 10 minutes for it to all set in that the Royals actually came back and won that game. And just, it says so much about the makeup of this team, the crowd staying in it the whole way. Just an unreal experience. And I've definitely gone back and watched the highlights too, probably one too many times. And I know that I was there on Friday, but when you see a game like that in person, that's something that sticks with you for years. That's going to be a game that I always remember, I think. It was that type of night at the ballpark. And you never know what you're going to see when you walk through the gates and you see the field, when you walk into a stadium. And it was one of those nights. It was special.
You briefly touched on the MJ Melendez home run. 2 home runs, 6 RBI since last recording, but he hasn't really done much outside of that. And that's kind of been the microcosm of his season. He'll get into an occasional big time hit, home run. But outside of that, hitting 162 on the year, entering Tuesday's play, the walk rate's down to 7%. WRC plus is 54. In the month of May, striking out 30% of the time, or I guess struck out 30% of the time. 38 WRC plus, didn't walk even 4%. So I don't really have a firm take or anything to take away from this, but I do think that the Royals keep waiting and the fans keep waiting. The media keeps waiting for a final decision or final call on who is MJ Melendez. And he did this last season, played bad, and then the second half really turned it on. Even if he does that this year, they're still kind of in the same spot. And I talked about this with Shane Dennis on ESPN Wichita on Tuesday. It's no longer the evaluation year. It's time for people to kind of determine and show the team one way or another if they are a long-term part. And MJ Melendez hasn't really done that. And I'd even argue he's doing the opposite this season. He can still rebound. He can still improve. I believe someone on Twitter brought up that he might have made some mechanical changes to his swing.
He did for sure.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
He's trying stuff and he's in the lab working. I didn't get the chance to watch games last week, obviously, because of the trip, so I haven't got to see it yet. But man, it's been tough sledding for him. Maybe the 2 home runs get him going and he can develop a little bit more consistency and confidence, but I really don't know what to do with him if you're trying to chase a playoff spot. Do you send him down? We've talked about the bullshittery, I guess, of this guy needs to go down and get his confidence back or get in the swing of things, but also they're kind of at a stalemate with what he's done versus what people expected him to do.
I'll defend MJ in this regard. Like, if he was not, and I think I said this to Shane the previous week, where if he was not the defender that he's become, then there's nothing. Like there's absolutely nothing. He's been that. He's been the consummate pro. He's been a hell of a teammate. I've heard no one has a bad thing to say about him in that clubhouse, and he's a big part of it. And he could let the struggles at the plate affect him in other areas, and that hasn't happened. So I think that's why they're holding on to him a little bit, because he seems to have a good mentality where it's all right, next day, and we get going. I will say this, like, despite the results really not being there holistically, the at-bats are way more competitive. He's fighting off more, like the book's out on him, like, throw him high fastballs, he'll swing through them or he'll pop them up. He's fouling off more of those pitches. He's working deeper counts. So the at-bats are getting to a point where I'm like, okay, like the process, it's one of those, and I think Vinny Pasquantino said it in a post-game thing, like, this is a results-oriented business and a process-oriented sport. And sometimes those two things don't line up. I think there is an element of that to what MJ's doing right now, especially over the last week, as he's made some of these mechanical changes. If the results start to come for him, then we're talking a different game. And sometimes, hitting is an infectious thing, and it's a confidence thing. He hit 2 big-time home runs this past week. The biggest being the one on Sunday, 2 outs in the 9th, come up big to tie a game. Like, I know they didn't win, but that moment, like, MJ needed that more than anybody. So, we'll see. I'm still holding out hope because I do think there's a good big leaguer in there, but they can't wait too long, and they can't continue to send him out there if the results don't come.
Yeah, no, 100%. The Royals are hoping that he gets back in the swing of things. And I have a company and a group of people and maybe some equipment that can help you do the same. I picked up golf a few summers ago. I think I'm going on year 3, year 4 now, and have just slowly fallen in love with it. As I've gotten a very, very, very small bit better, not a lot, I've kind of discovered how different clubs and club types can impact my game out on the course, and had heard the phrase that no one makes golf clubs like PXG does, period. Wanted to find out for myself just how true that was. So I got an opportunity to go out there and swing the PXG Black Ops driver. Total game changer. Married distance and forgiveness to perfection. Getting fitted, such a cool experience. I think, like, the expertise for each club shaft, the weight, all of that was second to none. I learned more about drivers than I thought even existed. It was just insane. Having the chance to assess your game from the tee and to a tee was super rewarding. Getting that real-time feedback in a friendly environment is something that I'll never forget. So PXG definitely made me a believer, and they're going to do the same for every golfer in Kansas City. Visit pxg.com/OneRoyalWay to schedule your fitting at PXG Kansas City. That's at 7517 West 119th Street in Overland Park. You get fitted for any club out at PXG, and you're going to get 1 dozen golf balls for free. That's pxg.com/OneRoyalWay to schedule your fitting. pxg.com/OneRoyalWay. Limit 1 dozen golf balls per person. Promotion ends on June 30th. Other terms and conditions apply. See the store for details, and we will be right back.
We appreciate you supporting KC Sports Network by listening to our podcast. You have helped us become the highest-ranked Chiefs podcast network in 2022 and 2023. And don't forget about our daily Substack newsletter, the best written analysis you can find on the Chiefs straight to your inbox every day. kcsn.substack.com.
Let's talk player spotlights, Joel. You have 2 players and I have 1, so I'm going to let you take your pick, and then I'll sandwich my player in between your 2 pieces of analysis here.
I want to get this one out of the way. So the last time that I spotlighted this player, it was, I don't know what the Royals are going to do with him anymore. And that's Will Smith. Because the last time I talked about him was after he got blown up in a very low leverage situation against Baltimore, after they had already removed him from the closer's role, which they started the year with him. And it's like, I don't know what they're going to do. Like, I just don't know at what point they just cut bait. Well, since they kind of shifted his role around, gave him some friendlier situations, this is since April 21st. So on April 19th was the blow up outing where he gave up 4 earned runs. I think it was the grand slam to Adley Rutschman, if I recall correctly. Since then, so this is April 21st to now, 14 innings, 1.29 ERA, a FIP is 2.5, 9 strikeouts in 14 innings. Now, he's actually struck out a batter in 6 straight, and there was a period of time where he had 1 strikeout in 7 appearances. So the strikeout stuff is starting to come back. The biggest thing to me that I noticed on Saturday, and I noticed it on Friday or the Thursday game against Cleveland, running up the fastball back to 92 to 93.
It's a big deal.
Early in the year, he was 89 to 90, and it looked bad. It was like the fastball was almost unplayable. If he can hit a 93, you're in a much better situation with Will Smith. And he's only given up 2 earned runs, and that was in 1 outing against Detroit on May 22nd. Scoreless outings other than that in these 14 innings. He looks like it's a little more comfortable. He got, I think, the 7th inning in a 3-run game on Saturday the 8th, which is probably the highest leverage that he's faced since they moved him out of the closer spot. So he's gaining some trust back. The stuff looks a lot better. And one thing that I don't think people, and because of something you can't quantify, right? Because people just want him gone results based. And I get it. Like at the beginning of the year, it looked untenable. But being able to have the opportunity to go to these games and have some access to the clubhouse and be around the team a little bit, even if I'm not talking to anyone, like just observing, Will Smith is a leader in that clubhouse. Like, I think that is very apparent. He is someone that some of these young guys go to. When he talks, people listen. And like, just his presence matters, I think, in this clubhouse. And you could attribute a lot of the talk has been what Waka and Lugo have brought in, and for good reason. But I think Will Smith, having been to 3 World Series and won 3 of them in the last 3 years on 3 different teams, he knows what it takes to win. He knows what it takes to get there to the mountaintop in different clubhouses and at different points in his career. So I do think he matters a lot to this team. Whether he's pitching low leverage 6th inning or if they need to give him an 8th inning, like, I trust where he's at right now because it's a much better place than where we were in April. And this is why you don't give up on guys, especially veterans. And I think this is where, I was going to have this conversation about Hunter Renfroe before he got hurt. Like, the patience that the Royals gave these guys and the leash that they gave these guys, this is where there's a reason why they are decision makers and big league professionals in front offices. And we have microphones and are on Twitter. Like, this is where that's the difference here. So this is not a complete absolving Will Smith of he's the closer again and he's the high leverage guy. It's not that, but he is a very good pitcher that has seemed to figure something out and has a place in this bullpen still. And he deserves credit for that because it could have completely gone off the rails and he didn't let that happen. And the Royals didn't let that happen either.
Yeah, it's almost a reverse 2023 for him where he started off really well and then down the stretch he faded. This year getting off to just an absolutely terrible start, but putting things together. And I think it was a perfect move to take him out of the closer role, get him some low leverage stuff, help him find himself again. And if he did, then down the stretch, that is a legitimate weapon for Kansas City. And I don't know if this guy's a legitimate weapon or not, but he keeps producing despite some very glaring weaknesses in his profile so far. Nick Lofton, he's hitting 306. He has a 112 WRC plus in the games he's played so far. Pre-demotion, Nick Lofton, because he's been up, and this really worked out well when I was doing research. It's 13 games in 13 games. So before he got sent down, and then since he came back up, 276 in 13 games beforehand, 14.3% walk-in strikeout rate. All of his hits were singles. Since he's got back up, still 10 out of his 11 hits have been singles. He has one double, but walking 12.2% of the time. He's only striking out 9.8%. Like, he is just absolutely great there. So what I think with him, what he's doing very well, plate discipline, on-base skills, great chase rate, great whiff rate. The strikeout rate's low. The walk rate is high. The zone contact rate's like 96%. So if he's swinging, he's making contact there. What he doesn't do well has been hit the ball hard. The bat speed has been poor. The hard hit and barrel rates have been absolutely dreadful. The average exit velo has been bad. The expected slugging stats have been bad. The actual slugging stats have been bad. He is getting under the ball 32% of the time this year versus 16 in his 2023 stint. And then defensively and on the base pads, slightly above average and outs above average. And the same with sprint speed. Played some second base predominantly. Also sprinkled in a little bit of outfield, 2 innings there, 10 innings at third base, and then 11 at first. So all of that is a long road to a short point. Terrific bat-to-ball stuff. Patience at the plate. The discipline has been working out. Respectable on defense and on the base pads. And then the power outage has been extremely severe and significant. So is Nick Lofton an everyday second baseman? That could be the answer is yes, but we're also no power that he's shown, which has been a little bit of a surprise. We didn't expect him to grow in anything crazy, but still, compared to Michael Massey especially, massive difference between the two. But again, small sample with him, hasn't played a ton, but he just keeps producing. That's kind of been the Nick Lofton thing. He just has great bat-to-ball skills and just knows how to hit the ball. When you pair that with good defense and respectable base running, the sprint speed stuff, the advanced stats are good. I think the Royals have, at worst, a really solid role player on their hands, if not a long-term option at a certain point if Michael Massey does aggravate the injury or takes a little bit to get back. So the Royals are missing Michael Massey, but I think Nick Lofton's doing a damn good job of helping alleviate that loss quite a bit.
He's a very valuable asset hitting 7th or 8th for this team. Like, the one thing that struck me watching these last few games with Nick Lofton, he puts together a good plate appearance every time.
He's
like,
such a
even
pro.
Yes, like, it is a very pro at bat, which there's credit where it's due. Even if it's a ground out, he's seeing 5 or 6 pitches more often than not, and he's not chasing out of his zone. He knows exactly who he is, and he's going to swing in the strike zone. He's going to make contact. Very rarely is he going to chase. So there is something to that, where if he grows into any sort of power or finds any sort of power with maybe like a swing change or a mechanical change, then there's something there. And one thing I remember when he was in the minor leagues and when he got drafted, look at a guy with a really solid hit tool, power you're not sure about, but a lot of positional versatility and some decent speed. Like, the lazy comp was Whit Merrifield. And I just looked at Whit Merrifield, his rookie year in 2016, when he played 81 games. He had a 392 slug and a 109 ISO, like, it with 2 home runs. Like, he didn't get hit for any sort of power until the next year. So maybe this is a situation where Nick Lofton needs to look to elevate the ball a little bit more. Maybe that is sacrificing a little bit of swing and miss and some strikeout to get there. But if he does that, and he's a 10 to 12 homer guy, which I still don't think is crazy for him even this year. Like, if he's that, and he can play some left field, he can play some first base, he can play some second base, you can plug him at third if you need to. He's a very valuable player for this team. And I don't see a scenario, honestly, where he goes back down. I think he's too good of a guy to have in this lineup for a guy that sees a lot of pitches and is willing to take a walk and isn't going to swing and miss in the strike zone a lot and hits fastballs pretty well. So I like what I've seen from him, and that there's just a couple things that if he continues to work and he's a grinder, then I think things can go really well for him.
You have another guy that I personally haven't heard of before. His name's Bobby Witt Jr. Is he on the 40 man? Is he good or anything?
Well, one might say he's pretty good at baseball. I mean, this guy's just unbelievable. Like, it's getting to the point where I'm running out of superlatives to talk about how much it brings me joy watching him play the game. And I wanted to go back because like the stats, he's on a 12-game hitting streak, and he's hitting near 400 in this hitting on a 12-game hitting streak. It's not like a 1-for-4 every game. Like there was a weird thing earlier this year where Ketel Marte had like a 22-game hitting streak, and his batting average went down during the hitting streak because he was like 1-for-4, 1-for-5 every game. It's not been that. I think he had 3 hits, including the triple on that game on Friday. I wanted to go back to our favorite line of demarcation, the walk-off grand slam last season. That was on July 28th of 2023. We have 550 plate appearances coming into tonight. So we're nearing the 162 game-ish mark. 550 is still a really solid sample of like, this is the moment, right? For that player. And it's crazy to have like one singular day where like, yes, this is when Bobby became a superstar. This is when Bobby became who he is now. Since that day, 550 plate appearances, slashing 321, 369, 575, a 155 weighted runs created plus. The ISO is 255. And he's not even riding a crazy BABIP either. It's 340. So it's 20 points below what he's actually hitting. It's 25 homers, 93 RBIs, 40 stolen bases, 160 hits in that stretch. It is just remarkable what he is doing. And I got to go to this tweet from Ian Kraft because this is what Bobby's on pace for this season. I got to get this pulled up here. It's a wild stat. So Bobby is on pace for this season: 207 hits, 84 extra base hits, 135 runs scored, and 45 stolen bases. That has only been done one time in Major League history. And this was by Hugh Duffy in 1894 for the legendary Boston Bean Eaters. Not even the Red Sox.
Boston Bean?
Oh, the Boston Bean Eaters in 1894.
That's not real.
When you are doing something in modern baseball and your only comp is black and white pictures and dudes you've never heard of, you're doing some crazy shit.
Yeah.
And like, he's pacing for potentially the best offensive season or like best season by a Royals player ever. This is not even just non-George Brett seasons, better than Brett. There are 3 seasons in Royals history where a guy's been above 8 wins above replacement. This is Fangraphs war. It was George Brett in 1980 when he won the MVP, 9.1. George Brett in 1985, 8.3. George Brett in 1979, 8.1, or I think it was 8.0 or 8.1. No one else is above 8. Bobby's pacing for like 10. So that just puts you like, that's where this guy is. And he hasn't even turned 24 yet. He turns 24 at the end of this week. He is going to stay in this MVP race for the whole year. It's crazy. Like you and Josh have been talking about all last year, just trading the guy. And now we get to watch him enter the prime of his career playing for the Royals and putting up historical numbers. Like, I know there's not a ton of, I know a lot of my analysis there was very facile and just reading off stats, but what this guy's doing is remarkable. It's crazy that this guy, he just keeps doing it every night. I kind of keep waiting for, okay, when's the slump going to happen? And he just doesn't slump now.
Yeah. He is very, very rarely, and Mike Trout is a case in point and a good case study of this. Very rarely can you point to one player and be like, that's the reason this team's winning ball games. Bobby Witt Jr. can be that. Salvador Perez qualifies, and then obviously some of the starting rotation has been too. But like, without him, the Royals aren't this good team that is resurgent and fighting for a playoff spot. Like, they are maybe closer to what we thought they were coming into the year. Competitive. Maybe they max out at 500 if things break right. Like, they have the guy that can deliver them signature moments and keep going into the playoffs. And they're going to need him because they finish up the Yankees series on the 13th. And then they play against Los Angeles with Cole Reagans, Seth Lugo, and Brady Singer taking the bump. That's going to be tough. But I do think for my bet of the week, I think the Royals win on Friday against the Dodgers in the opener. Maybe that's Thursday, whatever game it is on 6/14. Gavin Stone, first career start against Kansas City. I think the Royals are going to want to send a statement to start that trip in LA.
100%. Oh,
The
yeah.
odds haven't been released yet, but LA at home, damn good team. LA in general, damn good team. LA with Gavin Stone on the mound. I mean, it's just degrees of separation. So you're going to get tremendous value if you bet the Royals. So I think I just have a weird feeling about it. So naturally, they're going to get pummeled like 10-0. But if they don't, and if they do win, I think that might get me back to 500 on the year for me.
Okay, so I'm going to hold you to this a little bit because you have the Royals money line, which means you think they're going to beat the Dodgers that day. Cole Reagan's on the mound, which means he's going to start off the game facing Mookie Betts, Shohei Ohtani, Freddie Freeman. Over under half a strikeout.
I'll give him one. So I'll go over. I'll give him one punchy to begin the game.
I'll call my shot. I think he's going to punch out Ohtani.
Okay. I can see that. Paul Skeens is doing it. So apparently anybody can do it. I'm just kidding. I love Paul Skeens. But
Paul Skeens, he had a ridiculous game tonight too against St. Louis.
Yeah.
I think like it's going to be very similar. Like Reagan's is going to go up there 90 and he's been very good. And I think it's like sneaky interesting about his evolution as a pitcher. He's not throwing 99 in the first inning. Like it's 94, some 95s. Maybe he'll hit a 6. And then the 6th inning, he's doing what Verlander did. There's the 97, 98, 99 at the end of the game. I could see him amped up and 98, 99, and then Cambio 0-2 and get Ohtani swinging. I could see that happening.
I forgot my point now. Oh, it was no, it wasn't your fault. I was asked a question. I did radio twice on Tuesday, which is abnormal for me, but I was very grateful for it. On WIBW, and I was asked about who would you take in like a do or die game, fate of the universe on the line for the Royals, Seth Lugo or Cole Reagans. And like, no disrespect to Seth Lugo whatsoever. He has been their best pitcher this season, but like I took Cole Reagans and I didn't have to think twice about it. Like I had my answer before the question was even done. Like he's that legit of a dude, I think, that you can't really quantify. And I think that, again, because of that money line bet, that's kind of one of the factors for me that influenced that decision.
Well, and some of it too, the strikeout stuff is just different, you know? Like, I think that's why you would take a Cole Reagans over Seth Lugo. Like, if you give me Seth Lugo in like game 2 of a playoff series, absolutely. But you need to go out and make a statement. It's him. Cole Reagans number 1 with a bullet. Like, and I don't think there's a close second behind that. As highly as I think of Seth Lugo, like the Royals have that guy, and I'm going to keep saying it. I can't believe they got him for half a season of Aroldis Chapman. Like, unreal. So my bet for the week, Salvy's been slumping a little bit. I don't expect him to stay in it for too long. I got him over 4.5 hits. I think I could see him busting out in that series against the Dodgers. When like it's one of those where when the Royals need him and when he gets going, like the lineup goes. And they won some games last week without him playing really well. Yeah, it seems like he's got it back a little bit. I think they're gonna be all right, and I think Salvy's gonna get off the schneid a little bit and get rolling again with Bobby.
I dig it, man. I also dig the minor league update because I haven't been able to do that in a couple weeks because I was gone. Omaha digs winning, man. They are 42-19. They've been ridiculous. Plus 78 run differential. We have quietly a shit ton of transactions to talk about with this minor league segment. Andrew Hoffman back from the 7-day IL. Noah Murdoch got promoted from AA to AAA. He had a 2.22 ERA in AA, 24 innings. He had 26 strikeouts, but 15 walks. So a little bit alarming, but a lot of good. I'm interested to see what he does. And then Josh Lester got promoted from AA to AAA. 295 batting average, 10% walk rate, very manageable strikeout rate. Lots of good stuff to like there. My player to highlight for Omaha, and I had this filled out before he got called up. Granted, it was kind of predictable with Hunter Renfroe fracturing his toe. But Drew Waters, he was slumping, I mentioned earlier, not playing too well as of late. But in the series against St. Louis, he had 7 hits and 18 ABs. He had a couple home runs. He had 7 RBIs. So in a similar vein to maybe MJ Melendez, was this something to get him out of the slump? Can he hit the ground running? The Royals, as we speak, and I held off for 45 minutes without giving a score update, are getting rocked by the Yankees, and Drew Waters hasn't been a part of the solution so far. So interested to see what he can do with this kind of opportunity, because as we've talked about on air and off air, this might be kind of the final, not last straw, but like the last golden opportunity, so to speak, for him.
That's the way to
run
put it,
with
I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, like it's a scenario where, like, if Hunter Renfroe was still hitting $150 and didn't have things heading in the right direction,
Then it's different.
Then it's totally different. But Hunter Renfroe had completely turned his season around, even if the season long numbers don't look great. Like, you understand, like you can put in context, like the last month he'd been awesome. They'll throw Hunter Renfroe right back in that lineup with like no question about it. So this is where I think Drew Waters has to produce and he has to look good. And if he doesn't, then that might be it. And you can say the same thing for Nick Prado too. Like, I think this is, but I don't even think this will be the last opportunity for him, purely because they're not gonna, like, he's gonna be up here for like 4 days and then he'll be back. So, and then Frazier will be back. I do want to talk about Walter Pennington. I meant to talk about him last week before Josh and I rambled too long before we get to the minor leagues. He was internationally pitcher of the week the previous week. On the season, it's 65 strikeouts and 42 innings, only 13 walks there. So and that was kind of the thing. Like, the strikeout stuff had always been there for him, but he walked a bunch of guys as well. He's kind of stopped doing that. I still am waiting for him to get to a chance, but this is where I kind of have the same opinion that I've had about Drew Waters and others when it comes to promotions or non. And there's a philosophy phrase they're called Occam's razor, which is when you have two things or a situation and there are two outcomes, the most obvious outcome or the most obvious solution is usually the correct one. And that's where I think this applies if the Royals were going to call these guys up, they would have already. Yeah. Like, Walter Pennington would already be in the big league bullpen if they truly believed with no doubt that he was the option, that he was going to be the guy that was the needle mover in the bullpen. Maybe he is, maybe he isn't. But the fact that he's punched out 65 and 42 innings and he's not up, it tells you something. They took until June 11th for them to call up Drew Waters, and it took Hunter Renfroe fracturing his foot for that to happen. So this is not me writing off Walter Pennington and saying he is not an option, but if he hasn't gone up already, there's got to be a reason. And it's not just JJ sitting on his hands and going, nope, everything is fine, because clearly that's not the case either. Unless you have some sort of confirmation bias and you didn't like him to begin with. Like, that's your opinion. You're wrong, but that's your opinion. Double A, what do you got?
25 and 32, fourth in the Texas League North. Shervia Newton got activated from the 60-day IL. Parker Harm and Joe Gray Jr. got released, and then Brandon Johnson got promoted from high A to double A, 4.13 ERA in 24 innings pitched. He had 36 strikeouts to 10 walks and 18 appearances. So good news for him. The biggest transaction/injury update, Caden Wallace, one of the top prospects in the system, has a right oblique strain. 6-week prognosis, July return potentially for him. I saw that with Annie's article on MLB.com. She does great work for anyone who hasn't followed. That does suck. That is notable because obliques are tricky, and then getting back from an oblique is even trickier, it seems. The Royals have probably, within the fan base, outlawed that word because players have dealt with stuff like that, and it's not been great. But the silver lining for my player spotlight, Rodolfo Duran hitting .301, 7 home runs, 28 ribbies, 141 WRC plus. The walk rate is low, the BABIP is high, so I don't really buy into a lot of what he's done so far, at least a little bit of it, but he produces anyway. The last month, 135 WRC plus. The ISO is well over 200. In the month of June, entering Tuesday, he had played 7 games and had a .444 batting average. So he's been hitting the cover off the ball and bouncing back. Look, he's 26. I don't think he's a long-term piece for the Royals, but he keeps producing. And when people tweet out their prospect highlights and Raising Royals tweets it or the team account tweets it, he is always in that conversation. And I feel like we've talked about him a few times. So Double A is doing things. They're kind of scuffling a little bit, and the injury sucks to Wallace, but there are good things to talk about.
Gavin Cross on the injured list too absolutely sucks. Like,
Yeah.
hopefully that's a short stint. Then we'll talk about Mason Barnett, who is a guy that we really like coming into the year, a guy that we thought maybe could factor in at least to AAA at a minimum. Really struggled on the year so far, at least from an earned run perspective. It's the ERA 6.14. But again, he's striking out 68 and 51 in the third, and only 18 walks in that. So, I mean, the strikeout to walk to me is fine. It feels very Alec Marsh-ish in a way, where the strikeout stuff is obvious, but he just gets hit around. It could be a factor of maybe being just in the zone a little bit too much. I haven't really gotten to sit down and watch a start like from start to finish, but the strikeout stuff is clearly like the stuff is there. I think there's a big league pitcher in there. I don't know what capacity, probably reliever-ish, kind of like it's kind of how I view Chandler Champlain as well, similar sort of thing. But I do think there is a big league pitcher in there. A couple decent outings, giving up the home run ball, giving up 4 home runs in his last 2 starts, which I don't love to see, but he had 7 strikeouts in 5 innings on the 31st and only had 1 start last week. 6 strikeouts and 4 2/3 would give up the 2 homers. So just something to monitor, but a guy that's still kind of striking out the world, and probably factor in a little more next year where we need to have a more serious conversation about him, but something to watch out for.
100%. Same record down in Quad Cities, 25 and 32, -8 run differential. Hunter Pattison got promoted from up to Quad Cities, 3.27 ERA, 56 strikeouts in 55 innings and only 8 walks. So he was playing really, really good ball.
Yeah.
Last 2 starts combined 14 innings and 12 punchies for him. Chase Isbell, not Kyle Isbell, promoted as well. 0.79 ERA with 33 strikeouts to only 5 walks in 22 innings pitched. So he was absolutely shoving and just going under the radar, and people didn't notice it. Apparently Quad Cities did. And then Cooper McKeon got released. He had a 9.56 ERA in 16 innings pitched with Quad Cities. The standout player for me, and it's a bad one, Trevor Werner, the number 19 pipeline player. Last year, absolutely hit the cover off the ball. The ISO was 345. The WRC plus was 214. This year, he's still walking at a double-digit clip, but he's striking out 44% of the time. Just absolutely alarming numbers. 153 batting average. The power absolutely gone. 51 WRC plus. This was a player that appeared to be, trending in a very, very positive direction through the first year plus in the system. Now that has been completely halted and reverted in a bad way. He has regressed totally, not looking good. Not many positive indicators as of late that it's going to turn around. But, this is kind of one of those things where you have a sample size where he was absolutely insane. Then you have one where he's been the same in the opposite direction. So something to monitor. Again, not one of those top 10, top 5 prospects that you're like, oh my God, it's time to panic. This guy is going to, not factor into the future of the team. But there was hype for him, and he just hasn't been able to parlay that into some success so far.
I'll be honest. Like Trevor Warner was a dude I was super high on coming into the year.
Sure.
I'm kind of out. Like if you're going to strike out your 40, like over 40% in high A, like you got problems. Like it's just not going to work. And it sucks because it looked like a guy that they kind of stole in the later rounds. That was like, yes, like this could be a dude that diamond in the rough. I just don't think it's that, especially if you're going to strike out like he is. Like that, there's certain things I'm willing to overlook. There's certain things I'm willing to overlook with guys, but that type of strikeout rate at high A when you played 4 years of college ball, I can't look past it. A dude that we all like collectively coming into the year had him pretty high on a couple of our rankings. If I remember, it was Carson Rockefeller, who we've just kind of kept waiting to figure it out. Like it'd be bad, and then he'd have a couple game stretch where it looked like he was turning a corner, and it just never happened. It's a small sample, it's not that many at bats, so take it with a grain of salt. It's let me get it's 25 32 plate appearances since the calendar flipped to June. But he's slashing 280, 406, 560 with a 162 weighted runs created plus. Looks like he's figured something out. And the walk rate and the strikeout rate are equal at 18.8%. Seeing the ball a little better, strikeout rate's down, hitting the ball with a little more authority. It's something to monitor. I'm not yelling, "Oh, he's fixed." I'm not there, but it looks like the swing looks a little cleaner. He's making more contact in the air, which is a good sign for him as he tries to develop a little bit more power. So, and he's still playing a really solid center field as well. So we'll see. We'll see. I am not, like I said, I'm not saying Carson Rockefort's fixed, but if he strings this together for another 2-3 weeks, then, I'm willing to, with new information, I can change my opinion.
Yep. I think you could apply those last few sentences to Columbia, who is riding a 6-game winning streak entering Tuesday's play, now up to 30-25 plus 24 run differential. They had a lot of stuff happen. So from the ACL to Columbia, Ismael Michel and Jesus Rios, a couple of right-handed pitchers got assigned there. Also, Diego Guzman, a shortstop, was optioned there. Hit 343 in the complex. He had 3 games with Columbia before Tuesday, no hits. Mauricio Veliz activated from the 7-day IL. And then Eduardo Herrera was released. He had a 3.86 ERA in 14 innings, but had walked 11. So my player, Emmanuel Reyes, and I believe I talked about him like in, early May, and said I'm keeping an eye on him to see if he keeps pitching well, and he does. He has 49 strikeouts to 14 walks his last 3 starts. He has 16 innings pitched, 12 hits, 2 earned, 6 Ks, 3 walks. Since the 17th of May, you add a couple more starts into that sample. 1 home run, 23 strikeouts to 4 walks. He just pitches really well, continues to play well. Young player, extremely impressed with what I've seen from him. He's a guy that I think could be and probably should be deserving of a promotion at some point soon, because he might just be maxing out what he can do down in Columbia. So good stuff from him and good stuff from the Fireflies as of late.
Weird nugget from Emmanuel Reyes' most recent start. He went 5 innings and only threw 35 pitches. Like that's
next level efficiency. That's like MLB The Show efficiency.
Yep. That's where you're throwing sliders in and fastballs up to the CPU and they just can't figure it out.
Yeah.
Guy that I'm still very intrigued by, and I don't know what to do with him yet, but Eric Torres is fascinating.
Yeah.
The dude just hits. There ain't a lot of power in there. And you're hoping he can develop something, but I mean, if you're on base and you're a singles machine, like Luis Arias makes a damn career out of that.
Yeah.
So, he doesn't strike out a lot. He takes some decent pitches. He's got a little bit of speed. He's hitting 289. The weighted runs created plus on the season is 112 with an ISO of 0.27. So
I was going to say 27 what? Like, is there a number before that?
0.27. Like I had to double take when I saw it because I can't even think of an ISO that low. But 289, 379, 316. Like if he can get any sort of power, I don't know if he needs to have that Whit Merrifield diet where he eats 9 eggs a day or whatever the hell it was.
Nick Lofton said, "Hold my beer at 0.16." By the way,
yeah, like that's if he's able to figure out a little bit of that. And he plays a pretty decent center field, too. Mm-hmm. The Royals need outfield prospects that are worth a damn. He's someone to keep an eye on, I think, just because the hit tool is so good, at least early on for him in his first go-round in pro ball, that I'm willing to, not be concerned by the ISO at this point. Like, the dude puts the ball in play. He knows what he is. He's not trying to be something he's not, which I think is a really emotionally mature thing for a guy at that level.
It's refreshing for a prospect to do that.
Because he very easily could try no, I need to hit the ball for power. I'm going to try and just pull the crap out of the ball and see what happens. he's going to spray the ball everywhere. He's going to put the ball in play. He's going to hit a bunch of singles and get on base to be a table setter. Like, those dudes have value. And if he can get any sort of gap power, then he becomes a real asset for this team.
Yep. Speaking of real assets, I'm going to toast game to Adam Frazier, raising a glass of Ben Holiday bottled in bonds, soft red wheat, 5 Farms Irish cream, 360 vodka, whatever you've got. For hopefully him and his family doing better and feeling better soon, in light of what's been a rough past few days that I can't even imagine, but also for playing good ball as of late. Prior to going on the bereavement list in the month of June, 5 hits and 15 plate appearances, had a home run against Seattle on Saturday, rebounded
It's
after.
Luis Castillo.
Yeah.
We've seen
nonetheless,
home runs. He had the home run with 2 outs in the 9th or whatever it was.
Yeah.
But I think the home run against Castillo was like the most improbable home run that we've seen this year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And he went 2 for 2 with a double and a homer off Castillo, and then got pinch hit for.
Yeah. He continues to fill the role on the team, and that will continue once he gets back. Month of May, 76 weighted runs created plus. The OBP dipped down below 300, but still on the year, 85 WRC plus. The strikeout rate well below 20. The walk rate right at 10. He keeps playing solid ball, and I remember very early in the season, there were some conversations about, okay, well, what does he actually do? What's he going to offer the team? It's been very clear what he offers the team, and that's a little bit of positional versatility. It's a little bit of stability. It's the veteran leadership, all that stuff. So it might not be pretty, but the toast game to Adam Frazier is, I think, necessary.
I talked about him earlier. I'm going to toast him Bobby Wood Jr. I know it's low-hanging fruit. I know that we probably do that quite a bit on this show, but for the MVP candidate that he is, 12-game hitting streak, everything that this team needs, he finds a way to do. Like, we're looking at a guy that is going to contend for a Gold Glove. He's going to contend for a Silver Slugger. He's going to be one of the reasons that the Royals are playing October baseball. You probably put him number 1 on that list. So he deserves all the credit for it, and all the credit in the world. Even if he probably gets too much, I don't think there's such thing as too much credit for what Bobby Wood Jr. is doing right now. The fact that he's 23, they just gave him a contract, and that contract looks like a significant underpay right now, says a lot about the type of player that he is and what he is continuing to be for this team. So, raising a glass to Bobby Wood Jr.
I'm raising a glass to you, Joel, and to Nick Springer, and to everyone who tuned in on YouTube, Apple, Spotify. We did do this one live. We'll do it live. We will be back next week. We'll have Josh Kaiser in tow. It's going to be fun. It'll be a good time. So again, thank you to everyone who tuned in. Thank you to Joel and Nick for helping make this possible. And we'll talk to you next week. Take care, guys.